Yolanda, you know I'm excited when we get to talk about love.
Charlie, we're so excited. This conversation is gonna be so good.
Ladies, pull over, turn up the volume, okay? Or if you're at home, make sure your Wi-Fi is consistent. We have the one and only Devon Franklin in the house to talk about his new book, where he's spilling all the tea on the fellas, called The Truth About Men, What Men and Women Need to Know.
Yes.
Welcome.
Yo, thank you. Thanks for being here. It's always a pleasure.
Oh, yes. Welcome back to the show.
I'm excited. Yeah, I think we were like, Megan and I were on maybe in the first episode.
One of the first episodes, yeah, season one.
Crazy.
You're a Yes Girl OG.
Yes Girl OG. Alum.
Well,
I'm back.
You know that we start off the show running down your receipts.
Okay.
So let's just remind the people who you are.
Okay.
Best-selling author with the book you co-authored with Megan. Good. Your wife of 7 years. Yep. All right. Come on, Team Love. The Wait, right? You're back now with the second book. Hollywood producer.
Yes.
The Pursuit of Happiness.
Yes.
Heaven is Real?
Heaven is
for real.
Those are movies I did as an executive.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, hello, hits. Preacher, motivational speaker, and just all around great person.
Yeah.
Look at
good
that.
days.
And
Monday and Friday.
Did all this in 40 years.
Okay.
So we want to know all the like when Devon walked in, you guys, he's got like presents. Yeah?
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Presents.
Executive presence.
And you just have to humble, like you just, okay, I see you, Devon.
Yeah, hilarious.
Which I have to say, that authority and the fact that you live it and mean it is why this book will touch people.
Yes.
Because
it's authentic.
Authenticity is key. And there's a lot of men out there who write about love and don't know what it is.
Yeah.
You are not one of
Well,
them.
no, that is true. That's true. I don't fit that category.
So speaking of,
I'm learning every day.
tell us how the idea to do this book for men and women, but about the men came about.
Really what motivated the book was, coming out of the Wait, which is such a blessing that book has gone all around the world. And I mean, almost every day, someone posts, sends us a social media post about how they have read that book and it's changing their life. However, the flip side of that is that so many women, kept coming to us saying they can't find a man who will do the Wait with them. And that really bothered me. And so I started thinking, okay, well, why is that? And the more I started thinking about that, the more I started realizing, I know why that is. And as I started delving deeper, not only into men, but my own manhood, I began to realize, like, got it. There's this thing that all of us deal with, all of us meaning men. Women deal with it too, deal with it differently, but I speak from a male point of view because I would never try to tell a woman, here's what you're going through in that way. Right. So as I started researching in my own self, saying, okay, here's what I'm dealing with, it made me look in the mirror as a man and say, okay, what is the work that I need to do? And then how can I, without, pointing the finger, but still, holding men accountable, my brothers accountable, how can I write something that will help point the way? Here's how we become the men we want to be. Here's how we value a woman that wants to wait instead of devaluing her. How do we deal with our issues? How do we deal with our brokenness? And all of this came through really exploring not only men, but also myself and coming to a conclusion about the issues that we face.
Wow, ladies, he's done the work. I try to tell you guys. So how many men did you talk to for this book?
You know what? I talked to, first of all, the first thing was, again, what I want to do with this particular book, I try to do this with all the books that I've written, but with this particular book, it was really important to not write the book, from me here down there, almost like at a 45-degree angle.
You're high horse.
Right. That's right. Because a lot of people say, I'm on 90-degree angle, 45-degree angle. No, I wanted to write it from 0 degrees.
Got it.
So me to the person. So the first person I had to interview was myself. What? Let me be honest, okay, about what I'm dealing with, what I'm struggling with. Why am I struggling with those things? And so two things came, revelations came. The first one was when I look back at my own, adolescence and manhood. I lost my father when I was 9 years old. He died of a heart attack when he was 36. And, that was devastating to the whole family. And it wasn't until my teenage years where I found out a secret that I didn't know. And it was that my father had cheated on my mother while he was alive. And when I found that out, it devastated me because I'm like, wait a minute.
The image you had.
Right, of him.
Yeah. And also it was like, well, can men be faithful? Is that what is this? Why? Can we not be? And so as a kid, I began asking the question to all the women in my family, can men be faithful? And they would say, no. They would say 99% of all men cheat. I said, what? Like they were saying it like it was some law of the universe. They were saying with such certainty. No, they said 99% of all men cheat. I said, well, why? They would just say that's just the way men are. And so even as a teenager, as an adolescent, I became, just committed. How do I become the 1%? Now, fast forward into dating and, just because I was waiting doesn't mean I was a good dater. I dated, at times pretty poorly. However, once I got married, a lot of men, one of the struggles that I believe men deal with, and this is the thesis of the book, men deal with lust. And I want to be clear about something. Sometimes lust.
More than women?
Here's what I would say. I would say women, from my research, have do a better job of handling it.
Got it.
Men and women obviously deal with it. But again, I'm not going to speak from a woman's point of view.
True.
I'm not going to put on those shoes. I'm going to own the shoes of a man, because here's also one of the things. I'm coming right back to this point. So often when we talk about men and women, the conversation keeps diverting to what women need to do better. And I said, I'm not writing a book about what women got to do better.
Thank you.
As a matter of fact, men got to do better. If we really look at it, again, not that women are perfect in everything that you all do, but I would say by and large, you're on a much better path of doing the work than we as men, as a gender are. And I said, I'm not writing that book about, here's what you got to do. I will write the book about here's what you need to know as a woman. So for me, it's about here's what men got to do better. And so one of the reasons why I don't touch as much on lust in a woman is because I didn't want the book to veer into that territory. I touch it, we deal with it in a section. From the research, women deal with it much better than men, but of course we all got it. But in men, I believe that when lust goes unchecked, it operates like an untrained dog. Now, lust is more than just sex. Lust is a selfish impulse for sexual, financial, personal, or professional gain by any means necessary, even if those means are detrimental. That's what I believe lust is. So it could be a lust for money. It could be a lust for power, success. Lust can take many forms. And when you really look at manhood through that lens, I think we can see lust playing out in so many areas of our culture as it relates to men. So I call lust the dog. Again, men are not dogs, but we can act like one when we allow the lust in us to rule, and eventually it will ruin our life. However, as I started doing, the research in my own heart, I began to realize, like, okay, as much as I've written books, I preach, I go around the world, I produce, that doesn't make me immune to the dog. Doesn't make me immune to lust. And so as a man, in order to write this book, I had to own up to my own lust. I had to own up to my own dog, saying, hey, I got one. I don't want to have it, but I got it. And it doesn't matter that I'm married to one of those beautiful women in the world. Doesn't matter that I'm happily married. Doesn't matter that my marriage is great. I still got it. And let me tell you, that revelation was, at first it was depressing, to be honest. It was really depressing because I'm like, wait, I love my wife. I'm not trying to cheat on my wife. I have no desire. But why is this dog barking?
So how does a man identify his inner dog? Even, the good brothers. What's that word?
It's actually very simple. It comes down to decision making and urge management. Urge management.
Okay.
I believe the quality of our life comes down to how we manage our urges. And what do we have an urge to do, and what do we do about it?
How do we, with urge management in particular, because a man, starts out as a boy. So how do you teach a boy so that by the time he becomes a man, he understands? Because I'm sure when you're starting in your 30s, 40s, the urge management, it might be a little, more challenging than if you were groomed with that.
Sure. Part of it is as a man, or especially as a boy, okay, you're going to start to feel these things. They're normal, right? But here's the thing. You have to learn the same way when we have a hunger pain, we learn how to manage our hunger. It's the same way we have to learn how to manage our urges, because not every urge that we have as a man requires to be fed. And requires to be fed regardless of any other commitments or any other integrity that we have, desire to be or to have. So as a young boy, it's like, okay, these feelings are going to come on. Here's what they feel like. Here's what they look like. You're going to want to do this. Here's what you should do instead. It's about training. It's about mastering. That's the other part, which is while every man has the dog in them, that lust, every man has love. And that is love of self, love of God, love of the woman in their life, love of their family, love of community. I believe that when we master the dog, when we put love in control of lust, this is when we can become the men we want to be. This is when, and this is only when. So even when you talk about the good brothers out there, Even the best brother, if that brother does not make the decision that I am going to manage my urges, I'm going to get this dog under control, I guarantee you the dog will get the victory, because anything we suppress, we empower to destroy us. So if I don't recognize that I have this lust in me, if I don't recognize that there's a thing in me that has the power to destroy everything I care about, if I don't recognize it, I empower it. And it's going to come in through in ways that'll be destructive.
The culture also feeds the dog.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yes.
Oh, without a doubt. I talk about this in the book.
Yeah.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
It 1,000%. And I say, listen, there's nothing wrong with us saying, hey, you know what, men got to do better. But then I also, try to educate men and put them up on game, saying, listen, there's a culture that not only feeds the lust in you, but it profits off the lust in you.
Absolutely.
And if, as a man, if you aren't aware of that, you will inadvertently be feeding the dog, and that will have a direct negative impact on your life. So you're 1,000% right that the culture feeds it, through the shows and the music and the movies at times. And so, this book is not only just a conversation starter, but I wanted to put on a new lens for us to start looking at things a little bit differently and putting what we want out of life as the number one priority, and to be smart. Because a lot of times we just inadvertently fall into a pattern. We fall into a pattern of consuming certain things in the culture that actually perpetuate the lust, instead of putting not so much an end to it, but managing it. Because I don't believe that there's anything a man can do to eradicate the dog forever. I believe that it's mastery. Mastery is the process. It takes a lifetime. If I stand before you, two incredible women, and I tell you right now, oh, I've mastered the dog, oh, I'm good.
And
Count the days until I fall. Count them. Count them.
The scandal.
Put the clock.
Seriously.
It's coming. It's coming.
So it's that constant accountability.
Of course.
That's
Of course.
interesting.
Of course. And it starts. I have to make a committee of one. Me. I got to look in the mirror and say, who do I want to be? Who do I want to be?
Right.
Not who do others want me to be. Not who do others think I am.
Yeah.
Who am I and who do I want to be? And based upon that decision, I have to then walk that out. And if I really want to be the man I believe I can be, I also have to acknowledge that there's something in me that if I don't get it under control, it will control me. And that is a scary thought for sure. And I think this is why so many people don't make that acknowledgement, but there's a lot of power in it when we accept it and then put ourselves in a process to be able to deal with it.
Go ahead, Yolanda, go ahead.
Can
I'm
you
going to
tell
go,
us-
I've put a footnote.
Just more about, the book is about the truth about men and men having to do the work, but the work also transcends love and relationships, which is a very good part of, our daily existence. But what other areas of work do you touch that men have to do in the book?
Yeah, one of the big areas is the difference between personal success and public success. And so I talk to men about this, but I also talk to women about this. Too often, we value and we validate a man based upon his public success. And my argument is that you can tell something about a man from his public success, but you can't tell the whole story. The real success is personal success. Who is that man when he goes home? Who is that man when no one is watching? That to me is integrity. That's character. And so when we live in a culture that obsesses over public success, we tend to put so much energy and focus on what happens in the public. We do it at the expense of what's happening with us personally.
Yeah.
And this also comes to women too, because sometimes, in my experience, women will look at a man and they'll see him, see his job or who he is in public and say, oh, wow. And that public could even be the church. Oh, he's in the church. Oh, my goodness, he's amazing. You don't know anything about who that man really is. It's very easy to put on a presentation in the public. What you got to do is wait so that the personal person, the real person, reveals himself. Now, in some instances, who that man is in private may be the same man in public. Great, awesome. But in many instances, that's not the case, whether good or bad. So I talk about, let's not focus so much on public success. As men, the same energy we put into conquering our careers, let's put it into conquering ourselves. Let's work on self-control. Let's work on not allowing money and greed and success and fame on any level be the things that drive us to the point where we want it just because we're told we need it to feel like men. Let us take a step back as men and identify what are the things that keep us up at night? What are the things that get us up in the morning? And where do we need to help the most? So yes, the book goes well beyond just love, sex, and relationships. It really goes into life and how do we navigate and deal with that?
That's really interesting too, because when you think about the public, right, but the private,
Yeah.
public versus private, we were talking a lot about social media.
Yep.
Especially in 2019 and this idea of our public persona.
Oh, yeah.
What scares me, right, as a love editor, is seeing all these couples say, okay, we're Insta famous. People have a crush on our love. We're Black love goals. And that's the public persona, right, that they're
Yeah.
putting out. But sometimes I worry that makes people think like, okay, we're good.
Yeah.
So we don't have to do the work anymore as a couple. We look like we've got it together. We got 20,000 likes or whatever. We went viral for a photo. But then the work behind that photo, I'm always like, is it happening?
Yeah.
So I think, it's great to do that assessment individually and as a couple as well, because we are really in a space where public persona is all we care about.
Well, I know, and the real challenge with social media is that we find self-validation with little hearts,
Yeah. We've been
little
saying
comments,
it.
and it's like I've seen people's complete mood shift
Change. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
based upon how many hearts or not.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
This is why, honestly, a lot of the posts that I do on social media, I don't even go back and check.
Yeah, you don't look.
The numbers.
Right.
I look at comments sometimes because I love to see how people are engaging and what they're responding to, and it's a fantastic way just to stay in touch, but not from a sense of, okay, if I'm not getting that, I don't feel good.
Right.
But here's the thing: it's dangerous for all of us.
Yeah.
So I'm so there have been times I'm like, oh man, well I posted this picture, they liked that one. I posted another one the next day, they didn't like it so much. At the same time, same caption. What's the problem? What's wrong with me? And I was like, wait, I don't want to go down this slippery slope.
Please.
I don't want my value tied to people I don't even know.
Yeah.
Right? Whatever. And I
true.
think the point you're bringing up about a relationship, this is also the danger and the challenge of having a relationship that's in the public.
Yep.
And so it's like, Megan and I didn't choose to become public.
Yeah.
Truth be told, I mean, listen, she's one of the most famous people on the planet, and I married her. And as a result, with that came a lot of attention.
Yeah.
And still comes with a lot of attention. I've had my own purpose and things that I'm doing in life, but certainly, people know me a lot because of me being married to her. Yeah. And with that, we just say, listen, we're going to live our truth. And when you really look at our, social media, we post a little bit together, but not much.
True. You actually.
We don't.
Yeah.
We don't
It's a
because
good balance.
we don't want to get caught up in.
Yeah.
Then are we doing this moment because we think it's going to be a postable moment, or are we having this moment because it's a real moment?
Yeah.
And there's a slippery slope.
It is.
Now, listen, we're not here to write the rules of social media and what couples should and shouldn't do, but I think we have to always keep a barometer of truth and what's good for the relationship, and navigate and manage how relationships are handled in the public. Our relationships are handled in the public, because when you're letting people in, I think it still has to be at your discretion.
Yeah.
And not at your detriment.
Absolutely.
How do you I've just seen you and Megan, even when cameras are off and we're maybe at Essence events, and the level of communication that you've developed is really aspirational. And I wonder, how did you two come to that place? Years and years of work? Is it therapy? Is it outside? Like, how did you two get to that place?
Oh yeah, I mean it's all of the above. You
Yeah.
know, I mean therapy, conversations, situations. So much of it's a combination of both. Where it's like on my end, like again, growing up with my father, and him passing away and finding out about the affair and seeing just how so many women in my family were hurt. I grew up with that sensitivity, saying like, okay, when I get married, I want to be a good husband. I want to master that. Like that's like you got
It's
to
a
work
goal.
at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't just husband on autopilot. You can't just like say, okay,
that again.
you know what, I'm a husband. Okay, cool. It'll take care of itself.
Oprah said that was sweet.
You can't just husband on autopilot.
There you go. There you go. Yes, girl. Tweet that. Tweet that. Tweet that. Repeat that. I love that. And so I personally put a lot of time and effort into saying, okay, how can I become a good husband and be a good husband to her? And she puts a lot of time into, how do I become and be a good wife to me? But now, sometimes my version of being a good husband, maybe my version, it may not always be the version she needs. And sometimes her version of being a good wife, maybe her version of what a good wife should be, but isn't always the version that I need. So what we do is we talk a lot, and we could communicate. And also sometimes, that communication isn't like, oh, the moment something is wrong. There will be sometimes I won't know something is wrong with her until like 2 weeks after the incident happened.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh.
We all do it.
We do. We
As women.
Y'all just be holding on to stuff. It festers and those resentments grow.
Sometimes we got to take a pause though and make sure we say
I
when
know.
we express.
I know,
Yes,
I know.
We don't go there.
But here's now we're getting into some real truth here. And I talk about this in the book. But here's where a lot of times it shows up in the bedroom, in the sex life.
That's so true.
If you want to see if there are resentments in your marriage or your relationship, for those that aren't doing the weight, it'll show up in the sex life.
Yeah.
Because if you're a man and you're like, hey, I'm ready to, make love to my wife, and all of a sudden she's like, oh, I'm not sure, or not tonight. It's like, okay,
yeah.
wait.
What?
Red flag.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now that is the symptom, but it's not the problem.
Right.
The problem was a resentment that happened, weeks ago.
Right.
That is not talked about.
I always say foreplay starts in the morning because you have to get in my brain in order for me. So you can't just show up and I'm like, oh, okay, we had this huge fight. Okay, let's have sex now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Women,
yeah.
I think a lot of women are like that.
No, I think you're right.
Absolutely.
I think you're absolutely right. And so part of what that means is like, okay, as a man, who listen, every man I know, especially in marriage, they're like, hey, what we doing? Like,
Right.
they want an active and consistent sex life, and so much of that comes from being in touch. And saying,
Absolutely.
okay, well, what's going wrong? Well, okay. And so with Megan and I, there were times like I didn't realize that I had said something or done something or spoke to her in a way that I didn't intend to speak to her, but I still did. That hurt her and that she was holding on to. So, and I didn't know until it was time for us to make love. It was like, wait, got it.
Yeah.
And we guard our bodies with our emotions.
Yeah.
So that's definitely for the brothers a sign. We slap your hand and we say, I'm going to bed. You are in trouble.
That's when you intro. You're like, wait a minute, hold on.
Okay. Wait.
Hey, wait a second.
Speaking of accountability, Devon, when I read this book, hold on, you look, I'm all in this book with the highlights and you see
love
my
it.
post-its. I wrote right here a word, okay, next to this right here.
I love it.
We were talking about accountability in this
Yeah.
book, right? Okay. Now, you say, if your woman holds you accountable when you fail at discipline, accept that as a sign of respect. A woman will hold you accountable if she believes in you and who you really are, even if your actions don't always show it. Can we talk about this accountability, please? Because when I try to hold my husband accountable, I'm a nag. I'm stressing. I'm bothering. I'm emphasizing.
How do you do it?
Yes.
I mean, I'll do a morning check-in. I like to go over the day's to-do list in the morning. He doesn't love that.
Now, is that your to-do list or his to-do list?
Ours, because we have to grow together. So everything
But you wrote it.
well, look,
Okay. That's right.
Wait a minute.
Tell
wait
the
a minute.
truth. Tell the truth.
Sometimes I rearranged it, but we do
Yeah.
a good job, I think, of deciding together what we need to work on. I just need him to follow through, and I'm the lister, like the list and the check. So every morning I'm like, remember we said we were gonna get better today? Oh, good morning. Remember we said we were gonna get better today? And I don't think he sees that as a sign of respect. So when you said that, how do I get him to know that that's my love language?
Got it. Okay. So
You know what I'm saying?
I do. A couple things.
Okay.
I think one, there's a difference between, mandating and managing.
Okay. Hold on. I feel a read coming on. Okay.
Wives. He's not talking about us.
I'm just saying.
Damn.
There's a difference
I feel a read coming on.
between
Okay.
a mandate and management.
Okay.
So when you and your spouse come together, I think it's really important to come to a level set of expectations. Because fundamentally, where accountability can be successful or not comes down to what your expectations are.
Okay.
And so you have an expectation that he should do certain things. Well, it's so important to get him to agree that you can expect those things before you can hold him accountable to those things. Because a lot of times what happens is when you don't get him to say, yes, you can hold me accountable for these expectations, it's no longer managing and helping him, you're mandating.
That's
Because
real.
you're telling him to do things that he never even agreed that he wanted to do.
So discussing them isn't agreeing. That's what I'm learning.
That's right.
Because we talk about it.
A discussion is not an agreement.
Okay.
And this is the thing,
Okay.
in marriage, we got to get into clear communication. And part of clear communication is developing, sometimes, you got to say, when you're in a conversation, okay, what I hear you saying is, repeat it back to them. So then they can clarify. No, that's not what I'm saying. Okay, clarify. Okay, what I hear you saying is this. Okay, now, baby, I want to do certain things this year, right? Let's talk about our goals. Okay, we put our goals together, right? So my love, can I hold you accountable for these, and will you hold me accountable for what I want to do? And then he's got to say, yes, I will. Yes, that sounds good, baby. I need your help. Yes, that sounds good. You said that to him. Now, it becomes it becomes a process of managing it with the right tone. Now that's the other part. We got to talk about the tone. Got to talk about tone.
I'm sweet as pie with it. I'm sweet as pie with it, but I'm ritual with it. That's my issue.
Right, you just like, good morning.
Good morning, my love.
No.
I told you. My love, you gonna build that over the back today? Or no?
No. You got to give him a chance.
My love.
Sweetness, Devon, sweetness we've got. But no, mandating versus managing. That was real.
That's really what it comes down to.
I receive it.
You know, and I do think that when he feels like you're following up with him based upon what he's already said you can, even though he may resist it, he still will probably value it and appreciate it more than when you're trying to keep him on to doing something that you want him to do that he may not want to do. You know, I mean, there are times, plenty of times where, you know, Megan will tell me, you know, hey, well, babe, you said, like, for example. So, you know, one of the things that I recently, the past couple months, had to learn to manage was sugar. You know, again, not that like my blood work or anything was bad or anything like that, but, you know, I just wasn't at the optimal health that I wanted because I work out consistently. You know, I eat a relatively healthy diet, but every night it was, you know, the cookies and the pineapple side down cake and the.
I didn't even see you eating
feeling food.
Oh yeah,
I like to say.
Feeling Put them away. That's
feeling
right.
food.
Oh yeah. And also, it's like, you know, when you're running and you're stressed, you're just like, give me sugar and salt. So
together.
Yes.
Please, salty and sweet.
That's right. Exactly. So I would tell her, like, okay, baby, you know what? I really want to, you know, I want to get it together. You know what I mean? Like, I really want to, you know, just stay fit and get even, you know, better. Midsection was showing a little whatever. So when I would go to start eating these cookies, she would hold me accountable. Like, well, babe, you said, and then I'd get mad. Baby, let me alone. I worked out this morning.
Hangry Devon.
What you talking about?
Nope.
You know, I went to Rumble this morning. I went to Matrix. I did my workouts, right? But I ultimately appreciate it because she was only doing what I said I wanted to do. She was only helping me do what I said I wanted to do. Yeah. Which, again, going back to the book, is a sign that she's actually for me. Yeah. Because I think one of the challenges with love is it's such a rare thing and a precious thing when we get it that we don't want to lose it. And part of losing it, we sometimes associate with, if I'm really honest or I really hold them accountable, I might lose this. So then what happens is we see things in our marriage or relationship that are unhealthy, that the other person may do. Yeah. And because we're afraid deep down of losing them or hurting their feelings, we just become a silent codependent.
We don't keep it all the way real.
We don't. We don't tell the truth.
We don't.
And ultimately, I think that takes our relationship in a direction where it's less healthy, it's less fulfilling for all of us. So sometimes, yes, there's going to be a difficult conversation. There's going to be hurt feelings. But ultimately, that can produce a great result if it's done in love.
But overall, Devon, I do want to ask you about, we're living in the Me Too time, movement. And these conversations are coming into the home with, you know, my husband and I always go back and forth about, and I find myself, just to be truthful, you know, I find myself having to teach him about equality and women's rights because he's not a bad man. He just was never socialized like that.
Sure.
It was, you know, he had a strong mother, but, you know, beyond the nuances of what, you know, feminism is, he didn't necessarily grow up with that. And so even when we talk about the truth about men, there is some reckoning that has to happen around what patriarchy has done to, you know, to men and to Black men in particular. How do we handle that, those conversations in our homes and also in our communities to teach men that, hey, all these years of bad behavior, it's over.
Oh yeah. I talk about it in the book. I mean, I write extensively about the Me Too movement, the Time's Up movement. I try to give information about their origins and to kind of, you know, to demystify, because these are not gotcha movements. You know, especially, you know, Me Too, it was created primarily for women of color. You know, Tarana Burke created it so that women of color who were sexually abused had an outlet in a community where they could find the support that they need.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't until 10 years later where the Harvey Weinstein thing came and Me Too, you know, blew up, but it's been around for quite some time. So I wanted to educate, you know, anyone reading the book, you know, what Me Too and Time's Up means, what their goals are, what their objectives are, because sometimes in the media, you know, the intention may get lost. So that was really
Absolutely.
important. The other thing is that there used to be a time where men's successes would cover their excesses. That day is over. So if as a man, if you're not managing your excesses, it will absolutely disrupt your successes. And so part of the conversation is to write a book like this as a man and say, hey, men, we got to do better. I talk about this in the book. We've been living high off the Boys Will Be Boys credit card. Well, the bill is coming due. And we got to do our work.
Okay.
We got to do our work. We can no longer have a chauvinistic attitude and just say, oh, because I'm a man. Yes, especially as black men, yes, we are kings. There is no doubt about that. But as a king, that doesn't mean that that's a license to oppress. It doesn't mean it's a license to abuse. It doesn't mean it's a license to use our masculinity, as a hammer. No, it means as a king, we listen, we learn, we provide for the community by modeling what we feel like we need in our homes, in our communities, our schools, our companies. And so part of it is and it's the hard work of getting men to look in the mirror. But that's also why I included women in the conversation in this book, because it's really important. Because I know that as a man, what you just said you did with your husband, I thought was fantastic and brilliant. Why? Because it's very hard for a man to become who he needs to be without a woman in his life who will take the time to educate sometimes, to hold him accountable, to say, hey, baby, I'm here. I can see in your blind spot,
Right.
and I'm trying to give you information that you may not see. We need that as men. And so I think the man that really is in touch with himself, that will say, you know what, I do need the right woman in my life. Not to do my work. No woman can do a man's work. A man's got to do his work. But a woman can play an amazing part of it. And so much of it starts with that man saying, how do I become better? And my prayer and my hope, and this is why one of the reasons why I wrote this book, is to put out there to all, men especially, hey, it's scary, but we can do it. We can do this work, and we can become better. And that, to me, is what real leadership looks like. If I'm a leader of self, then I can be a leader of others. But how can I lead others when I'm not leading self? And so it's not an easy thing to do. It's not an easy conversation, but I touch on it in the book because I think it's so important.
Now you're speaking about potential, right? Like that's, knowing you have the potential
Yes.
to get there.
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about that? Because as you said, a lot of people read The Wait and they were like, Devon, Megan,
Yeah.
where are these dudes?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Where are the
I'm
men?
ready to wait, but he's
Right,
not. Where is
right.
he?
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about identifying a brother or a man that can take this journey with you?
Yeah.
Like as a woman, really from a
Absolutely.
man's perspective, what to look for? Because maybe
Yep.
we don't know
Yeah.
what to look for.
So that's why I articulate the struggle of love and lust with the master of the dog. So one of the things, I talk about in the book is that for a woman, you have to determine, are you dealing with a man who is being led by the master, or are you dealing with a man that's being led by the dog? So I give one example, especially if you're dating. The dog likes to hide in the shadows, meaning that the dog doesn't like to be in the light, especially with its intentions. So as a woman, if you're dating, are you in a gray area? You have to get out of a gray area, especially when you're dating. And a gray area is an area where you're the most vulnerable, where you don't have all the information about what's really going on. You aren't quite sure of his intentions. You do hang out with him. You have great conversations. You seem to consistently communicate, but you don't know if you're committed because you haven't yet asked the question. You got to get out of the gray area. And the only way sometimes to know if you're dealing with a man who's being led by the master or the dog is to ask clear, direct questions and wait for clear, direct answers. It blows my mind. And I'm going to say something on the Yes Girl podcast.
Okay,
I'm going to
let's
say
do it.
something. I'm going to say something.
Let's do it.
It blows my mind that if you go, and right now, for the women listening, if a man, or someone were to come over and grab your purse or your iPhone, what would you do?
Smack him.
Okay.
Smack him? What? Okay.
Kick him.
All right.
Chase
right.
him down.
Right. You're like, no. Right? Like, no, I'm not gonna do that. Right? You know what I mean? Like, you would just never. Or let's say you're in a relationship. Like, it would be a long time before you would give that man the code to your phone.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's no trust. Why would you give a man your body before you give him the code to your phone? We're just gonna let that settle. We're gonna let that just sit in the atmosphere at the Yes Girl podcast for a moment.
I mean, come on, Pastor. That's true. That's true.
I'm just saying.
But
What if I wanted to?
Okay,
What if
that was just
what if
about to say.
Hold on. But here's the thing. This is why I wrote this book. It's so important. There is nothing wrong with it.
Yes.
If you want to do it,
As much, yeah.
fine. However, what I am saying is, as a woman, you have to identify, what do you want out of this?
Right.
Sure. As a woman, if you're going to say, hey, all I want is sex, I want to get my body, okay,
And I
that's
can
your
walk
choice.
away.
That's your choice. But if you're saying, I actually want more, I'm actually in a place where I'm looking for something committed. When you talk about the weight, most of the women doing the weight are looking for something, more serious. So if that's what you want, then you got to start with the foundation of what you want. And this is where navigating your flesh becomes important. It doesn't mean women want sex any less than men. They don't. Of course, women want it just as much. But as a woman, if I was a woman and I was dating, the last thing I would give a man is sex. The last.
We've been socialized,
Of course.
to think, let me just
bargaining
give
chip.
him what he wants,
It's a
and
bargaining
he'll
chip.
give me what I want
But it doesn't
later.
work that way.
Yeah.
It truly doesn't work that way. And honestly, the man that sees something of value. Now listen, these are rules. There's always exception to the rules, right? So there are some people who, hey, they've had one night stands or whatever, or they hooked up early in the relationship, and they have healthy marriages. So I want to be very clear. This is not one brush paints all kind of thing.
Right.
However, by and large, in my experience, when you decide this is what I want a committed relationship, it's important to me to withhold sex. Why? Because you need to know, is this man being led by the dog or the master? Does he care about who I am? Is he really interested in where I'm going? Does he have any desire to maybe even help me get there? Or does he only want to be pleased by my flesh? This is another thing that I write in the book. How can you determine if a man is being led by the dog or the master? His desire for pleasure without accountability or responsibility. So when he's reaching out to you, is he only reaching out because he wants to hang out, hook up late at night? Oh, let's go to the movies. Let's do Netflix and chill. Why don't you come over tonight? During the week, can't reach him.
We used to call that a booty call. I know we have new names for it.
Apparently.
I'm just saying. But when we look at it through these lenses, sometimes it's like, aha, right. This dude only wants pleasure. He only wants what I can do to please him. He doesn't want anything more than that. Now, sometimes we can be in denial, especially in dating.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to tell the truth and face the truth. That I've been dealing with somebody who, it could be hard to say, I've been dealing with somebody and I'm realizing they're really not that interested. And then the choice comes, for a woman, and sometimes it can be a man too, do I subject myself to a situation that I know is less than who I am because I don't want to be without it? Or do I make the hard choice to draw the line and say, hey, if we're going to continue, here's what my standards are, here's what my expectations are, and if that person can't meet it, am I willing to be alone? And the loneliness can be so painful. A lot of times, people will stay in a dating situation that they know isn't quite right, but they'd rather that than be alone.
Right.
And so I wanted to write this book to give information to encourage someone to say, no. You don't need to choose a relationship and feel that you have to exchange, who you really are and what you really want just to be in a situation. I would encourage you, be alone, be whole, have peace, and wait for the right situation than to be in something that erodes and eats at your spirit every single day.
And also, okay,
word.
slight, okay, we gotta take all the notes. Slight plot twist, but I'm with you. I also wanted to see if you could speak a little bit to the woman who maybe didn't wait, but now wants to, even with the same partner. And what I mean by that is I think when a man and a woman are driven by lust, right?
Yeah.
You get to the bedroom really fast.
Yep. Absolutely.
But that same man and that same woman could have the potential to start over, call it, refresh, wait and build together.
Yep.
But I think sometimes it's this fear, at least with women, I know we have it. I fucked that up. You know? I mean, you know what I mean? I acted on lust.
Man,
or
what did I do?
impulse.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, being frank. And then you don't even tell him, I saw something more in you.
Yep.
Or
Yep.
I see something more in me.
Yep.
Because society tells us this is not a rom-com.
Right.
He's not going to come back tomorrow
Right.
anyway. So you need to move on.
Sure.
Can you talk to those women?
Yeah.
Because I think you can always start waiting.
You can always start waiting. You can always change the rules of engagement. I think this is so important for any woman listening, that you have the power. And even if you have made decisions that you want to change, do it.
Yeah.
And part of it is to be sensitive to say, so in this situation, if you've been having sex with your man and you want to change that, part of it is I advise sometimes even writing down what you want to say.
Yeah.
So that you have it there and you can refer to it, because sometimes it's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
And because you don't want to leave him, you don't want to lose him. So it's important to maybe even have it written down and be clear. The other thing is to say, at the end of the day, it's about choosing your own well-being. Because if you're feeling like, oh, I had sex with him and I want to stop, it's because something's just being disrupted in your spirit. You got to listen to that and say, put the peace of your spirit as a number one priority, and then choose things that will help you keep the peace and preserve the peace. And so it will require a conversation. It probably won't be easy. However, I believe that two things will happen. If that man loves you, what will happen is when you take sex off the table, it will clarify and potentially accelerate the relationship if it was already leading to marriage. Because it's like, okay, if I want to wait until marriage, now I take that off the table. If we've been dating for some time, it'll help produce the question, what are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing? Okay.
Where are we going?
Where are we going? And if love is really there and it's a real thing, we're going to the altar. So the man that loves you, who may have been sleeping with you, and you no longer want to sleep with him until you're married, even though it'll be hard for that man, I guarantee you that man that really loves you will hang in there and say, okay, you know what? All right, how long we talking? What are we? Okay, got it. Like,
With the parameters.
Like, no, I mean, like, okay, I do want to get married. Okay, I hear you. Right now, here's the other thing. When you take it off the table, be prepared that the opposite may also happen. That someone that you thought you had a deeper thing with, that if they can't get what they need from you in that sexual regard, they don't want to stick around.
They're missing out, though.
They're missing out. No, they're completely missing out. So I think it's important to not feel like you have messed up so much that you can't, reverse course. You can. I would also avoid against guilt and shame. Listen, we all have moments when we act in our flesh. We all have moments when we allow whatever lustful thoughts to not only just consume us, but we do it. We act on whatever it is. We all fall short. So don't bear too much guilt and shame to the degree where you don't make the necessary steps to get back to a place of peace.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Because we got to leave the guilt and the shame in 2018.
Have to.
Yeah.
Please leave it.
We all mess up. It happens. Say, hey, you know what? I messed up. I fell. But you know what? I'm going to get back up today, and I'm going to go in the direction I want to go in.
So we have some rapid questions for you. Some things that,
Rapid.
girls are always talking about.
All right.
Need some mansplaining.
We need some,
Uh-oh.
although
I don't
mansplaining
like
has
the
such a negative
mansplaining.
It has
I know.
a negative, but
connotation.
you actually have received
Some insight.
Okay.
We need some manly insight.
All right.
Okay, so one of them is you've been together for a long time, but he won't marry you.
Why?
Why?
Why? Because either he is afraid of commitment, and maybe because he had a difficult relationship with his mother or his father, or they got a divorce or something in his backstory, or he's just not that into you.
Just like that, ladies.
Wait, hold on.
I know. It hurts. It hurts, right?
Listen, you want the truth.
In our community, sometimes you see people have like 3 kids, 10-year relationship, and they're still not married.
Well, again, but the scenario you're giving, it sounds like it's a woman who wants to get married and has been in a long-term relationship, but he won't marry her.
He won't marry her.
Mm-hmm. So the reasons are either there's a commitment issue,
Or
he's not as into it. It's
He could
almost
just be
like
comfortable.
this situation is more
I guess.
comfortable. It's like, well, why do I need to take it to another level? I have everything I need.
Like
What is another
dagger.
level going to give me?
True.
It's like a
Right?
dagger.
So it's like, hey,
Life insurance?
you got to get married to get that.
Okay, wait. I got another one.
Yep.
He admitted he didn't want anything serious, but he's still acting like your man.
Okay, this is really, really important. I talk about this in the book. Do not be seduced by the actions of a man. If he told you he does not want to be in a relationship, believe what he said, not what he does. Because a man is very clear. Men keep receipts too of what they've told a woman and what they haven't.
Okay.
If a
okay.
man has not told a woman that we're committed, I don't care if he sees her every day. I don't care if he bought her a home. I don't care if he flew her around the world. He is going to say, that's not my girlfriend.
Even
Because
if you start a family.
even-
Add that too.
Wow.
Unless you have asked this man, are we committed? Are we in a
Yeah.
relationship? Unless you have asked that man and he has said yes, I would not believe what he does. I would believe what he said. So you can still hang out, but please be cautious that even if it looks like a relationship, if you have not gotten confirmation verbally from him, I would argue that in his mind, it may not be one.
Okay.
That's
Another question is, I want my man to be more financially responsible in our relationship, but he won't do it.
He's not paying his part. He's not. Devon's really laughing.
girls
This
are
is a
dealing with
serious
out here.
I'm
matter.
sorry. That was just like, I'm like, man, this is so obvious. It's like, now listen, if you're talking about in a relationship, I'll deal with a relationship in marriage.
Marriage, yes.
Yeah.
In a
Okay,
marriage.
so in a
Say
marriage, in a
He's
marriage.
not pulling his weight.
He's not pulling
financially.
his weight.
And okay, so in a marriage, I think it's, this is a delicate issue because people do break up over finances. However, it's important to not treat the joint finances as I'm bringing in this and you're bringing in that, right? When we're married, two become one. So that is one in every sense. So
Okay.
to me, if you want to get your man to a place where he is, more financially responsible, the worst thing you could do is to articulate what he's bringing in versus what you're bringing in. Number one. The second thing is it's about casting goals. Sitting down. Where do we want to be by the end of the year? What's going to help us get there? And what can we agree to financially as a plan that will help us achieve our goals? Not my goal, not your goal, our goals. And when you have those goals, now, okay, let's keep each other accountable. So at the end of the month, honey, we spent too much on shoes, or we spent too much on entertainment. Maybe next month we pull back, we watch a Netflix movie instead of going out. You make it a joint thing. Because when you vilify and you victimize or you villainize the man related to this, so many men secretly feel valued or invalidated based upon this financial issue. Because so much of a man's worth is tied to, his worth, financial worth. And some men, for whatever reason, are on a path where they're working on their finances, but they're not there yet. And so when they're made to feel less than in this area, it can produce the opposite result instead of the positive one. So if you're a wife, I would, do these things I've talked about. Create an environment, a safe space where you can talk about it, create goals you can keep each other accountable to without making him feel less than, because let's say he does bring in less. That's okay. At the end of the day, two become one and you share.
Okay, Devon, right? Okay.
We got them. We got more.
Hold on, no. I got a B.
A B. Let's do it.
I got a follow up on that one.
I love it.
So you're handling the money issue with white gloves. I mean, you're handling it with care. You love him. You're giving him the space. But there are some scenarios where he also just takes a long time to get around to your light touch approach. And I've heard a lot of women say, this was cute year 1, year 2, year 5. You know what I mean? She's still, as a breadwinner, it can be tough. You know what I mean? And I think we need to talk about what happens when you might have to take those white gloves off and put on the boxing gloves a little bit, because we're talking about money.
Sure, but what I would say is that
know?
I understand what you're saying. What I would say is that the issue actually isn't about money. It's really about purpose. If you're dealing with a man who is not working, right, which it sounds like that's the kind of the underneath the scenario,
Or not working enough,
right? It's like, okay, if you attack it based upon money, it's not about the money. It's about, okay, is he not working because when you met him, he wasn't working?
Got it.
Right now you married him, you want him to work. Like, okay,
That's sometimes
you
the
can't
case.
date the dog and marry the master. It don't work that way. But okay,
Facts.
is he not working because he has a hard time keeping a job? Get to the root of like, okay, baby, what's really going on here? Because I know you want to be a provider. I believe in your character and integrity. However, I know that it's not even a financial thing. It's a purpose thing. When we both walk in purpose, there's more peace in our marriage. So what's happening in your profession? What do you feel like you're not getting? What do you feel like the help you need? And how do we help support that? So that it's not about a woman doing his work, but also saying, hey, look, I'm your partner in this. And you'd be surprised and shocked at how many men feel very insecure in this area. And they don't know.
Right.
They just don't know how to handle it. So a lot of times when they're challenged on it, they act out.
Yeah.
Versus like, saying, hey, baby, to be honest with you, I'm scared. I'm scared.
Yeah.
Like I'm scared.
And they hate saying those two words.
They hate saying it. They hate saying it.
Especially a black man. I'm sorry. That's
no,
a tough
it
one to
is.
get him
It
there.
is.
If
It
your
is.
man said, I'm scared, he definitely loves you.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
That's hard.
Yes, he does. And so it's not even about kid gloves. It's not
Yeah.
about, I have to walk gingerly. No, it's not that at all.
Okay.
It's just about reframing it.
Got it.
And reframing it in a way where your intention is pure. Your intention is, I love this man, and I want the best for him, and I want the best for our marriage.
Got it.
So it's not about, I have to walk on eggshells. I still operate in truth, but I still do it with love.
Wow.
Speak with love.
There it
And
is.
wow.
There it
Speaking
is.
of love,
Yes.
we do love having Mr. Franklin here
Oh,
at
wow,
Yes
I
Girl
love being here.
Podcast, and we hope you'll come back soon
Without doubt.
with more
Yeah.
from
Please
the
get the
Truth About
book.
Men.
Truth About Men.
Yes.
There it is.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For
Thank
always
you.
keeping it real,
Appreciate
Devon.
Hey, we got to do it. No other way to do it when you come
We
to
could
Yes
go
Girl.
on and on, by the way, but because we had a whole bunch more questions.
We did. So part 2, you'll have to come
Hey,
back.
I'm here whenever you need me.
And bring Megan so
Yes.
we can really outnumber
Yes.
you.
Oh yeah.
Bring her back. But thank
I'll
you
do
so
it.
much.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.